You keep seeing the same number 3 times today, maybe 1111, maybe 444, maybe something else entirely. You brush it off as coincidence. But then the song that's been stuck in your head for days starts playing in the coffee shop just as you're thinking about someone you haven't spoken to in years. And later, you bump into them at the grocery store. Your rational mind scrambles for explanations, statistics, probability, random chance. But something deeper inside you whispers a different truth. This isn't random at all. What if the coincidences that pepper your life aren't coincidences at all? What if they're breadcrumbs left by a part of you that knows exactly where you're going, even when your conscious mind is lost in the fog? We call them synchronicities, these meaningful coincidences that seem to arrive precisely when we need them. But here's what most people miss. They're not coming from outside. They're not the universe playing games with you. They're your own intuition speaking in a language older than words, guiding you toward alignment before your rational mind can catch up. Think about the last time something inexplicable happened. The phone call that came exactly when you were thinking about calling that person. The book that fell off the shelf and opened to the exact page you needed to read. The stranger who said the exact words you'd been telling yourself all week. In those moments, you probably felt a strange recognition, like remembering something you'd forgotten. That's because you were. You were remembering what your intuition already knew. Most people spend their entire lives treating these moments as flukes, pleasant accidents. Good luck. They smile, they marvel, they move on. But you're different. You're starting to notice that these so-called coincidences cluster around certain decisions, certain crossroads, certain people. They intensify when you're on the verge of something important. They multiply when you're aligned with your deeper truth, and they vanish completely when you're forcing something that isn't meant for you. Your intuition doesn't speak in clear instructions. It doesn't send you a text message saying, "Turn left here," or "Trust this person." Instead, it orchestrates reality itself. It arranges encounters, it amplifies patterns. It creates mirrors in the external world that reflect your internal state. When you're aligned with your path, the world confirms it through synchronicity. When you're resisting your truth, the synchronicities dry up, and you're left with the deafening silence of misalignment. Carl Jung spent decades studying this phenomenon. He called it synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that couldn't be explained by cause and effect. But Jung understood something that modern psychology still struggles with. He knew that the psyche and the world aren't separate. The boundary between inner and outer is far more porous than we've been taught to believe. Your unconscious mind, that vast intelligence operating beneath the surface of your awareness, doesn't just react to the world. It participates in creating your experience of it. This isn't mysticism. This is the frontier where psychology meets quantum physics. Studies in quantum mechanics have shown us that observation affects outcome. The act of looking changes what we see. Your consciousness isn't a passive observer locked inside your skull. It's an active participant in the unfolding of events. And your intuition, that deeper knowing that exists before thought, is constantly reading patterns in the quantum field of possibility, drawing certain outcomes towards you while steering you away from others. But here's where it gets really interesting. Your intuition doesn't just guide you toward what you want. It guides you toward what you need to become. Sometimes these are the same thing. Often they're not. The synchronicities that appear in your life aren't just confirming your desires. They're revealing your destiny. And sometimes your destiny requires you to let go of the very thing you thought you wanted. You've probably experienced this. You were chasing something, working toward a goal, convinced it was your path. And then the universe started putting obstacles in your way. Not catastrophic obstacles, just small resistances. Doors that wouldn't open. Opportunities that fell through at the last minute. People who ghosted you or betrayed you or simply faded away. Your rational mind interpreted this as failure, as bad luck, as proof that you weren't good enough. But your intuition knew better. It was redirecting you. It was closing the wrong doors so forcefully that you'd finally notice the right one standing open. This is the paradox of synchronicity. Sometimes the most powerful sign from your intuition is the absence of signs. The deals that don't go through, the relationships that don't work out, the jobs you don't get. We've been conditioned to see these as failures, but what if they're actually the universe's loudest confirmations? What if the thing that isn't happening is your intuition saying, not this way, not this person, not this path? If this message resonates with you, subscribe to the channel and join a community of awakened souls walking the same journey of spiritual alignment. The problem is, we've been trained to override our intuition. We live in a culture that worships logic, that demands evidence, that treats feeling as weakness. So when your gut tells you not to take that job, you take it anyway because it makes sense on paper. When your body tenses around a certain person, you ignore it because you can't rationally explain your discomfort. When you keep thinking about a random idea that won't leave you alone, you dismiss it as distraction because it doesn't fit into your 5-year plan. And then, months or years later, you look back and realize your intuition was right all along. That job destroyed your mental health. That person was exactly as toxic as your gut indicated. That random idea was the seed of your life's work. But by then, you've lost so much time. You've wandered so far from your path. You've learned the hard way what your intuition was trying to tell you gently through synchronicity. Here's the shift. What if you started treating synchronicities as your intuition's primary language? What if, instead of dismissing meaningful coincidences as random, you began to see them as data points in a larger pattern? Not superstition, not magical thinking, but sophisticated pattern recognition happening at a level of processing your conscious mind can't access. Your brain processes 11 million bits of information per second. Your conscious mind can handle about 40. That means there are 10,999,960 bits of information being processed every single second that you're not consciously aware of. Your intuition has access to all of it. It sees patterns you can't see. It detects subtle cues you miss. It knows things about your environment, your relationships, your trajectory that your conscious mind hasn't registered yet. When you keep thinking about someone and then they call, that's not magic. That's your unconscious mind picking up on subtle patterns in their behavior, in the timing of your past interactions, in 1,000 microsignals that suggest they're about to reach out. When you have a bad feeling about a situation and then something goes wrong, that's not psychic ability. That's your nervous system detecting threat cues in the environment that your conscious mind filtered out as irrelevant. But here's where the synchronicities come in. Your intuition doesn't just detect patterns, it creates them. It directs your attention. It influences your choices in ways so subtle you don't notice. It guides you to be in the right place at the right time. It's your intuition that made you take a different route to work the day you ran into your future business partner. It's your intuition that kept bringing your attention back to that book until you finally bought it and found the answer you needed on page 47. It's your intuition that made you pause, turn around, and strike up a conversation with the stranger who would change your life. We think of intuition as passive, as something that gives us feelings we can choose to act on or ignore. But intuition is active. It's constantly steering you through subtle impulses, fleeting thoughts, sudden urges that seem to come from nowhere. And when you follow these impulses, when you trust these urges, synchronicities multiply. The world starts to feel alive with meaning. Connections appear everywhere. Help arrives exactly when you need it. Doors open that you didn't even know were there. This is what the ancient Stoics understood. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the logos, the rational principle that orders the cosmos. He believed that when you align yourself with this deeper intelligence, you move with the current of fate rather than against it. You stop struggling. You stop forcing. You start flowing. And in that flow state, what looks like luck to others is actually alignment. What seems like coincidence is actually coherence. You're not getting lucky. You're getting congruent with your path. Think of synchronicity as the universe's feedback system. When you're aligned with your truth, synchronicities confirm it. Opportunities arrive, resources appear. People show up who are meant to collaborate with you. Everything feels easier, not because there are no obstacles, but because the obstacles feel meaningful. They're not blocking you. They're refining you. They're part of the path, not impediments to it. But when you're out of alignment, when you're chasing something that isn't yours or avoiding something that is, the synchronicities stop, or worse, they turn negative. You keep meeting the same lesson in different forms. The same type of person keeps entering your life and betraying you the same way. The same situation keeps repeating until you finally learn what you're meant to learn from it. These aren't punishments. These are patterns your intuition is showing you over and over until you're finally ready to see them. The truth is, you're living inside a feedback loop between your internal state and your external reality. What you believe, what you fear, what you desire, what you resist, all of this is constantly being reflected back to you through the events and encounters of your life. Synchronicities are the moments when this feedback becomes undeniable, when the connection between inner and outer is so obvious that even the most skeptical mind has to pause and wonder. But here's what most people don't realize. You can intentionally work with this system. You can learn to read the language of synchronicity. You can train yourself to recognize when your intuition is guiding you through meaningful coincidences and when your ego is seeing patterns that aren't there. The difference is in the feeling. True synchronicities carry a quality of recognition. They feel like remembering, not discovering. They resonate at a frequency deeper than excitement or fear. They click into place with a quiet certainty that doesn't need to be defended or explained. Start paying attention to what precedes the synchronicities in your life. Notice your internal state in the hours or days before a meaningful coincidence occurs. You'll probably find a pattern. Maybe synchronicities cluster when you're in a state of open curiosity rather than desperate seeking. Maybe they appear when you've finally let go of controlling an outcome. Maybe they multiply when you're genuinely aligned with serving something larger than yourself. This is the practice. Cultivating the internal state that invites synchronicity. It's not about forcing or manifesting or trying to make things happen through sheer will. It's about releasing the tension in your system that blocks your intuition's guidance. It's about becoming quiet enough to hear the subtle signals, present enough to notice the patterns, trusting enough to follow the breadcrumbs even when you can't see where they lead. Your intuition is always speaking. It's speaking through your body's reactions to people and places. It's speaking through the thoughts that won't leave you alone. It's speaking through the dreams you can't forget and the fears you can't explain. It's speaking through the art that moves you, the conversations that spark something in you, the questions that haunt you in the middle of the night. And yes, it's speaking through synchronicities, those moments when the boundary between your inner world and outer world dissolves and you catch a glimpse of the deeper pattern connecting them. The more you trust these signals, the stronger they become. The more you act on your intuitive hits, even when they don't make logical sense, the more frequently your intuition speaks up. It's like any relationship. Your intuition needs to know you're listening. It needs to see that you're willing to follow its guidance even when it contradicts your plans or challenges your assumptions. And as that trust builds, the synchronicities intensify. Life starts to feel less like a series of random events and more like a conversation between you and something larger. A dance where you're being led by a partner who knows the steps. This doesn't mean every coincidence is meaningful. Sometimes a coincidence is just a coincidence. The key is learning to distinguish between the two. True synchronicities carry emotional weight. They resonate with something you've been thinking about, something you've been needing, something that's been alive in your unconscious. Random coincidences feel neutral. They're interesting, maybe even surprising, but they don't connect to the deeper currents moving through your life. And here's perhaps the most important thing. Synchronicities aren't guarantees. They're not promises that everything will work out the way you want. They're signposts, not destinations. They're your intuition saying, pay attention here, or this person matters, or this direction is worth exploring. What you do with that information is still up to you. Free will and synchronicity aren't opposites, they're dance partners. Your intuition guides you to the crossroads. You choose which path to take. When you start living this way, when you begin to trust the synchronicities as your intuition's language, your entire experience of life transforms. You stop feeling like you're navigating blind. You stop second-guessing every decision into paralysis. You develop a quiet confidence that comes not from controlling outcomes, but from trusting process. You know that if you're meant to connect with someone, meet them, work with them, love them, the universe will arrange it. You know that if a door is meant to open, your intuition will guide you to it. And you know that if something isn't happening despite your best efforts, there's a reason. And that reason is protection, not punishment. This is the life that's available to you. A life where you're not alone, figuring everything out through sheer mental force. A life where you have a guide, a deeper intelligence that's been with you since before you were born and will be with you beyond this body's last breath. Your intuition, your inner knowing, the part of you that never forgot who you are and why you're here. The synchronicities are just the visible tip of the iceberg. Beneath them is an entire system of guidance that's been operating your whole life. Every time you've been saved from disaster by a last-minute change of plans, every time you've been led to exactly the right person at exactly the right moment, every time something fell apart in a way that later revealed itself as the greatest blessing. That wasn't luck. That wasn't random. That was your intuition, working through 1,000 invisible channels to keep you aligned with your highest path. You don't need to understand how it works. You don't need to be able to explain it to the skeptics or prove it to the doubters. You just need to notice it, honor it, trust it, follow the threads when they appear. Take the detour when something whispers to. Stay when logic says leave, if your gut says stay. Leave when logic says stay, if your gut says go. Stop outsourcing your knowing to external authorities and return it to the only authority that matters, the deep intelligence living inside you. The universe isn't sending you signs because it's bored or mystical or trying to test you. The universe is you, your higher self, your unconscious mind. The part of you that exists beyond the limited perspective of your ego, and it's constantly communicating with the part of you that's reading these words right now, trying to guide you home to yourself, trying to show you that you're not separate from the intelligence that moves the planets and grows the trees and heals the wounds you can't see. Synchronicities are proof of that connection, evidence of your belonging to something vast and purposeful, confirmation that you matter, that your path matters, that every choice you make ripples out into a pattern you may never fully see, but that you're always contributing to. You're not a random accident stumbling through a meaningless void. You're a necessary thread in a tapestry so large and complex that your conscious mind can't comprehend it. But your intuition can. And it's trying to show you, one meaningful coincidence at a time, just how connected you really are. So the next time you see that number again, or hear that song, or think of someone seconds before they call, don't brush it off. Pause. Feel into it. Ask yourself, what is my intuition trying to tell me right now? What am I being guided toward or away from? What pattern is revealing itself? And then most importantly, trust it. Act on it. Follow the thread and see where it leads, because that's not coincidence. That's your life trying to find you. That's your soul leaving breadcrumbs back to your truth. That's your intuition speaking in the only language it has, the language of meaningful connection, of impossible timing, of synchronicity. If this resonated with you, don't just move on to the next video. Subscribe. Not for me, not for the algorithm, but because you're choosing to remember that you're not navigating this journey alone. You're part of a community of souls who are learning to trust the whispers, follow the signs, and honor the intelligence that's been guiding us all along. Your intuition brought you here. Trust that it knows what's next.